All right, good evening. Thank you all for coming. We're gonna get this meeting started. To start the meeting, Deb, would you take roll call for us, please? Yep. Okay, and then we need a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Slade. Can you all hear me? Closer. Okay, sorry. Okay, motion by Slade, second by Corey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, we'll call the Marion School Board order, and we'll have roll call.
Matt, Jen, Jared, Scott, Larry.
Yes. Now we'll need an approval to pass the agenda as it's written here. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Matt motions. Is there a second? Jen seconds. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I'll call to order the meeting of the Freeman Academy Board. We have 7 board members present, 2 are absent, which does constitute a quorum for us. The agenda will be public comment and action on the 3-school co-op. That's as formal as our opening goes, so I'll pass the gavel on.
So before we get to the public input part, based on our last public meeting, there were some questions that came up, 2 specific questions, one as far as participation and one as far as trying to anticipate what transportation costs would be for the Freeman School District if we were to enter into a co-op. So we did gather the participation numbers. I tried to post them up here. I zoomed in a little bit, so I'm going to kind of do some scrolling so you can get an idea. So for each grade, and I only put up the numbers for the sports that are actually in question right now as far as this potential cooperative. So we did 9 through 11 and 6 through 8. And for each sport in each grade, there is a percentage as far as what the participation is in terms of the entire population, whether it's boys or girls for that particular class. So if we look at what's going on here, maybe it's easier to look at the percentages per each grade. And obviously, this is one of the things that we kind of talked about before. Looking at participation numbers is great, but they tend to vary significantly depending on the specific class or even the particular activity in question. So you will notice for certain sports and certain grade levels, you're going to see higher participation than others. When we get all the way to the end here, so you kind of give you a sneak peek at what some of those numbers look like. And in our high school right now, you can see that, you know, aside from some classes with relatively high participation in terms of volleyball or maybe some track, the numbers are particularly low across the board. If you get all the way to the end here, the last 2 columns just kind of give you an idea for that specific sport, what the overall participation percentage is for all of the kids in those 3 grades. So you have basketball on the top, followed by cross country. I believe it's golf, track, and then volleyball at the very bottom. So again, basketball on the top, cross country, golf, track, and volleyball. So you can see in most of those classes at the high school level, your participation numbers are around 25% or lower. Obviously for volleyball, we're a little bit higher there in the very bottom corner. If you go down and we look at where the middle school stuff is, this is kind of similar to the conversation that we had the last time around, where our participation numbers in middle school are, for the most part, higher than what they are in high school. But still, as Nathan Epp and I were kind of talking ahead of time, the days of having 70% of your student population participate in sports are kind of behind us. So even looking at some of these numbers in the middle school as far as your percentages, when you have less than 50% out for some of those particular activities, that is a little bit concerning in the grand scheme of things. So again, if we go all the way over to the end here, just to kind of give you a summary of where everything is in terms of basketball, cross country, golf, track, and volleyball. You can see a little bit better in some of those sports, depending on whether it's boys or girls, but again, the majority of which are below 50%. Now, the other question we had last time around, and I'll try to zoom in so everybody can kind of see, was transportation and what those costs could potentially be. So what Debbie actually does every year, at the end of the year, is she takes what our total cost is as far as fuel, maintenance, what we pay drivers, and kind of divides that in terms of the total number of miles that all of our buses put on for the year. And then we come up with a cost per mile. So this is, the top four would be the last 4 years, what those numbers per mile have looked like at the end of the fiscal year. The current number for 2021 is just based on how far we are in this year, so that would change a little bit as we go. But in terms of the potential cost for Freeman Public, we have to do some assuming. Now, based on how we have some of this stuff drawn up right now, I only put basketball for boys and girls and volleyball on here because that's where we would be doing the majority of the traveling. Now, again, we're assuming that once every 4 weeks, based on how we have some stuff written in the draft agreement, we would be traveling to Marion. So most of these estimates are on the high side for us. But if you look at potentially traveling to Marion for 4 weeks in each of those 3 seasons, and obviously I have down 5 trips per week, but once you start playing in games, you're not going to actually have 5 practices in each of those weeks. But we wanted to err on the side, the higher side, so people get a better idea. So what we did is said round trip to Marion is 28 miles. We did a kind of a cost analysis for each of the 5 years as far as our cost per mile, and then we just took an average at the end. So you can see how there's a little bit of variance in what the cost per trip was per week, depending on what that cost per mile would be. But if you take a 5-year average of all that stuff, that bottom number, 838.88, is kind of what we'd be looking at as far as a max cost per season for the travel to Marion. Now, we haven't taken into account, practices that would be at Freeman Academy, because when we're talking about moving across town, those costs are probably negligible. But in the grand scheme of things, when you think about the potential cost for transportation, those are going to be significantly less than what it would be to pay an additional coach, which the hope would be with this. Each school would kind of be paying their own portion of what those coaching expenses would be, not to mention when you consider the other shared expenses between the schools. It's conceivable to estimate that this is actually going to save us a fair amount of money in the long run. So transportation and the additional cost for that really isn't going to net us any more expenses than where we currently are, and more than likely is going to take some of those costs away. So that's just some things to kind of clear up where some of the questions were at during the last meeting. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in, but that's basically what I had before we opened up the floor to anybody that wants to comment or have any other questions. And I know we just asked if you're going to ask a question to come down and use the microphone so everybody can actually hear what the question is or what the comments are.
All right, with that, then we will open it up to public input. Whoever wants to start, go ahead.
Test. I am a taxpayer and a parent in the Freeman district. Tonight I'm here solely as a reporter for the Courier. And I have both a comment and a question. And my comment is for the three boards and for the public. My comment is, you all are tasked with the challenge of being all things to all people. And we know that is impossible. And I want you all to know that I appreciate the time, the energy, the conversations that you've had in regard to this matter. I've talked to many of you about this, and I know it has not been easy. So I want you all to know that I appreciate you. My comment to the public is that regardless of what happens here tonight, my hope is that the response from the public is one of grace, of understanding, patience, and of perspective. This is a highly emotional issue, but this is not life and death. I think we need to keep that in mind. And I'm asking the public to keep that in mind. My question is directed to the Marion Board, because we know that you have expressed interest in a conversation that goes beyond sports. We're talking about possible long-term consolidation here. And I don't know that you've had this conversation, but my question is, if the vote here tonight is a no, what is your short-term and longer-term plan going forward?
This is the part I always love, because as a person, I'm only one, as a board member, I'm one person, so I can't speak for the whole board. But obviously, we've been searching for a while, and we've had plenty of struggles, and we're very glad we're at least to this point. And as far as consolidation goes, those have been talks we've had with Freeman and with other schools. They're not at the forefront of our mind right now. They're just things we know may need to be addressed and taken care of down in the future. And of course, the answer to what we'll do if it's a no tonight is, I guess, what most people have to do when things don't go the right way. You struggle on. And we've had an awesome relationship with Freeman Academy, and that's why we want to broaden that out to have more involvement with more community, which is Freeman. And of course, you know, like I say, we'll just have to struggle on and make through another year. But I see a vast advantage to not waiting any more years. I've been on the board for 13 years, and I've always heard next year sounds better than this year. But I've been on there 13 years, and I've been here before. In fact, 10, 11 years ago was the first time I was here to talk football. And so next year doesn't sound very good to me, because I've heard that too often. So my personal view is I really hope it can go the right way, because I think it's an awesome thing for all three schools. And I just know that's the hope, but obviously we'll have to struggle on if it's a no. So anyone else want to comment? Yeah, and we'll continue discussions, of course. So does that?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody.
I also have a couple of comments and a question. As a taxpayer and a parent, is that better? Okay. As a taxpayer and a parent, I have some concerns. Originally, when the co-op discussion took place, it was an avenue to consolidation. Now, consolidation seems to have taken a back seat. As a taxpayer, the benefit to Freeman Public would be consolidation, to share cost and share resources, bring programs back. A sports co-op really does nothing for that. In the scenario presented, you're asking the public to make a decision and the board to make a decision based on emotion. These are the first facts we've seen. In that scenario presented, we're not playing any games. We haven't looked into what conferences we might be in. We haven't looked at that transportation costs. And I'm here to tell you, I grew up in a very small district that was Class A. We are not ready for Class A sports. Not with the administration that's in place, not with the coaches that are in place, by no stretch of the imagination. This will not improve the struggles. I'm afraid it's going to drive more kids away. So I'd like you to keep that in mind. I would like you to also consider, if you are going to vote yes to tie co-op, to consolidation. Put a timeline. If we're not consolidated in 3 years, then the co-op runs its course and is done. Thank you.
We have Tom Osborne here as a guest. I've asked him to be here to answer some more technical questions, and this might be a time where he could help interject some things.
Good evening. As Larry said, Tom Oster here assisting the Marion School Board, and the best we can do is tell you what the South Dakota High School Activities Association has told us as far as the teams that we might be playing next year should you folks decide to consolidate, or excuse me, to form a co-op. And I think you'll find that many of these schools were playing B before this year, and they're moving up. What they've told us at the High School Activities Association for volleyball, basketball, track would be Andy Central, Dakota Christian, a co-op. Bonholm is moving from B back to A. Hanson is moving from B back to A. Mount Vernon, Plankington, two small schools that formed a co-op. Parkston, Sanborn Central, Woonsocket, which is, again, two small schools that formed a co-op, and Wagner. Those would be the teams in your Class A district for the next cycle, according to what the South Dakota High School Activities Association has said. I would respectfully disagree with the previous comments about you not being ready. I've been around and doing this a long time. I've coached for 30 years. And it's a misnomer that the level of competition is that much different. I would refer you to your football co-op that you're currently in with Canastota. Very competitive, obviously, state championships, and moved up a class versus what you would have been had you stayed independent and had your own football teams. I can tell you that there's no guarantee that if you co-op that you're going to win a state championship in basketball or volleyball. But to think you can't compete, that's just not accurate. You look around the state, people thought Mount Vernon and Plankington couldn't compete when they had to move to Class A, and they've done very well. People thought Bridgewater, Emory, Ethan couldn't compete in football, and they've done really well at the 11-man level. So don't sell yourself short. I think you'll be more competitive than you think that you might be. I just wanted to share that because the question was brought up of who you might play.
Thank you, Tom. And then I guess I just would like to elaborate, too, on the consolidation thing. That is very much an option, but I know when we first came with that option, it seemed to freak everybody out. And it is a much more permanent option. And so it only makes sense that when it was told to us that we'd rather look more at sports and see how that goes, that's a much more fitting scenario to start there. And, then, like you say, at the end of the 3 years, obviously, if it looks like it makes sense and everybody's in favor, consolidation is a very positive step forward from there. But I think we're kind of here tonight talking sports co-op because the consolidation thing seemed like too much to bite off at once. So I guess that's to address towards why we're not talking consolidation and talking co-op. So. Well, I'd address, I wouldn't like to say it's not going well. It's actually, relationship-wise, fantastic. We're just struggling with numbers, and we can't have our kids participating in age-appropriate levels. And so obviously, when it becomes that's the issue, then more numbers would help that. And so I certainly don't want it to be thought that it's not going well. The only thing that's wrong is we're short numbers of kids yet, so we're looking for larger participation numbers, and so that kids can play at their own age-appropriate level instead of having to move up all the time, because nobody enjoys having to play in an age bracket that's not your age level appropriate. So that's some of the goal we're going for.
Tom?
I would also like to make a couple of comments, if that's okay, regarding that. I agree completely with Larry. We've had a great relationship through the whole course of this co-op with Marion, and moving in this direction has nothing to do with that relationship being negative in any way. Way back when we started, I actually was saying that we immediately need to start talking about 3 schools. We didn't create the document that you saw up here for us, both for Freeman Academy and for Marion, but you will notice that several grades into different genders, there are 0% there. And that's going to happen from time to time with all 3 of us moving forward for the near future. And that's hard to overcome. It's hard to overcome with 2 schools. Adding a 3rd school helps us all share that burden and makes it more possible to have competitive teams when that happens.
Tom, I was just going to ask, so when we originally started talking about consolidation last fall, one of the things that you brought up at that point in time is in other situations or circumstances where schools have consolidated or reorganized, that process has been helped by a co-op to begin with. So I don't know if there's anything more you can speak on as far as that goes, or if that is pretty much it.
Yeah, there are countless examples in our state of school districts that started with a co-op for extracurricular activities that led to consolidation. You know, in the area, I think of Viborg Hurley, I think of Irene Wakanda. Those were started off as sports co-ops and led to consolidations. The kind of the running joke around the state was they dated for a while through a co-op before they got married and consolidated.
Dan Graber. I don't have any kids in sports yet. They're young. But even in my time since I've been back in the community, back from college, it's very apparent that Freeman and Marion and Freeman Academy's enrollment, it's not getting any bigger. The writing's on the wall. The towns across South Dakota, across the Midwest, are getting smaller. And I think also that South Dakota has been behind in moving towards consolidation, moving towards more sports co-ops. And I think this arrangement would be advantageous for everyone. It'd be good for business, it'd be good for the communities, it'd be good for the competitive aspect of it with more kids in the programs. And I think if you just look past that, it's kind of narrow to leave that aspect out. Freeman is not going to get any bigger. Even from when I was in elementary school, it's fallen off a lot. So I think this conversation, I hope that everybody really looks not just for the next 5 years, but what's going to happen in 20 years, and keep that in mind. Thank you.
Scott Dent. I want to give 2 observations from just different perspectives. To start, I've been blessed to get to coach in all 3 schools at the junior high level over the last 5 or 6 years, and the kids are awesome. The kids will play. I've enjoyed every minute. I really say I'm blessed to get to coach these kids. We have a lot of fun. We've been competitive at different times. But the observation from the coaching perspective is I grew up in a very large community. The high school I went to had 6,000 kids in it. First day of basketball tryouts, we had 500 kids in the gym for tryouts. That's a different world. And then I started coaching here, and where I see the disadvantage for the small schools is your top doesn't get better. Because if you're the best kid in the gym in 6th grade, you're probably the best kid in the gym in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, because there's no one pushing you. What putting the schools together does is it makes the top compete. It's not the middle and it's not the bottom that might change, but it's your top. To get your talent better, you have to have your top compete. Over the last couple of years, I've watched some really talented kids in both Marion and Freeman not get better just because they knew when they walked in to practice, they had their spot. All of our kids will get better when they find out they have to sit the bench. My daughter, most know, we came over to Freeman for many different reasons. She went from being the starting point guard in 8th grade to sitting the bench in 9th grade. She got better over that time. One thing to consider, in the 3rd practice of her 10th grade year, she tore her ACL. In the 7th grade, she played junior high ball, JV ball. In the 8th grade, she played junior high ball, JV ball, varsity ball. That's a lot of wear and tear on our kids because they have to play up. The other observation is from the ministry perspective. A lot of you know I do youth ministry in Marion. On Wednesday nights, we have been very blessed with Freeman and Marion kids. I reached out to a friend of mine who pastors about 7 miles north of us. And in their church, on Wednesday nights, they have Marion kids, Freeman kids, Parker kids, Canastota kids. The kids get along. Over the last couple of years, we've had an influx in Freeman kids. And I remember right at the beginning, some of the kids from Marion would make comments, or what are the Freeman kids doing here? It's the adults that had to say, everyone's welcome, now get along. In a year in, no one talks about it. So yeah, there's concern that when the schools get together, your kids might not get along right away. Adults can be adults and can make us get through that. So don't worry about what the kids think. Our kids in Marion and Freeman hang out all the time. There are pictures of proms. If you went to Freeman's prom a few weeks ago, many of the kids escorting each other were from Marion escorting Freeman or the neighboring schools. It's not going to keep the kids away from each other. And so I just give those two observations, not really leaning either way, but I think those are valuable in your decision making. Thank you.
It looks like I'm the only female. And I have notes. I can't talk off the cuff of my seat of my pants. I am Joyce Hofer. I'm a taxpayer of Freeman. I'm proud of Freeman, and I'm proud of our school. This discussion has gone on for 10 plus years. It's time it comes to an end. Marion has wanted to co-op with us. Menno has wanted to co-op with us. We said no a long time ago, and a lot. We've got the best of both worlds. Menno on one side, Marion the other, Freeman Academy across town. And we're saying no. I don't want to belittle the classroom or the school, but there's something to be said about a student participating in sports. If you don't have sports, you don't have a school. If you don't have a school, you don't have a town. We're wearing out our shoes, dragging our feet. We've slept for 10 years, and it's time we wake up. I have an illustration that I would like to leave with you. A farmer decided in spring he's not going to plant a crop. What if it doesn't rain? So next year, again, he says, I'm not going to plant a crop this spring. What if it doesn't rain? For 10 plus years, he has done this. Where do you think he is today? I have a feeling he moved backwards. I don't want to see these schools going backward. Let's move ahead. Let's think outside the box. Again, my recommendation is quit wearing out your shoes by dragging your feet. You've slept long enough, and I hope tonight you will wake up and get with it. Thank you.
I'll be the second female. I don't have kids in high school, so I can't really say a whole lot about that, but I have little girls, and they have danced together with Freeman and Marion. They play soccer together, Freeman, Marion, Canastota. We have wrestled as rebels for years. When I was in school, my brother was a rebel. His kids are here, they're rebels. The relationship has gone on for a long time, and it's been positive. So I'm curious as why basketball, track, soccer, or volleyball, cross country are any different. Football, I understand there's a co-op already in place. I get that. There's a contract. But why don't we bring all of our assets into one bucket and make something really, really good? If we go District A, awesome. Let's do it. Because we have good kids. We have good players. And it's not starting at high school level. It's starting at preschool. So my 3-year-old is playing soccer and making teams and friendships already at a young age. And parents are coming together and encouraging that. So I encourage all 3 boards, let's just do this. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Not female. I just wanted to bring something up that was brought up to me, just so maybe we can get some clarification on it. There was a subject brought up that, and it may be just something that I heard, maybe no truth to it, but I just want to try to clarify it. It was brought up that if we co-op, and this is my feeling too, we co-op, and I'm in favor of it, by the way, but I also want to make sure we got our ducks in a row. So, if we co-op, we go Class A. Now, there's been a lot of talk with, especially the older people after the last meeting. I talked with them quite a bit, and they said, well, you know, if we're going to go Class A, then we may as well consolidate and bring that to the next level and fix our financial needs, fix our academic needs, get the classes back, computers, home ec, get those classes back so our kids can completely enjoy all their academics. And then there was something that I heard that we may not be looking at a consolidation for, I think it was 7 to 9 years, was something that I heard. And if that's the case, why would we jump to Class A without fixing our academic and financial needs too at the same time, and not knowing how many more participants we're going to get out of it? So I just wanted to bring that up to clarify, is there an actual 7 to 9 year wait? Because if that's the case, that's not interesting at all. But if there's a 3-year wait and we can really look and everything's going good, by all means, but I just wanted to bring that up because that's something that was brought to me.
I guess there's an easy way to figure that out. From the Freeman board, which of us are in favor of this leading to consolidation within the next 3 years? So that's 4 out of 5 of the board members intend on this leading to a consolidation within a 3-year time period. And I hope that clears that up.
Just also a point of clarification on consolidation. The school boards that are looking to consolidate, or what the state refers to as reorganization, in the case of Freeman and Marion, the boards have to come together and put together a plan for reorganization or consolidation. That plan goes to the Department of Education and Peer. They have to approve that plan, and once they approve that plan, both communities separately have to vote. So all the school boards can do is recommend a plan to the voters of each community, and then the Marion voters would have to pass it, and the Freeman voters would have to pass it. And it's just a simple majority vote. So it is a process that can't be done by a school board action. It takes a vote of the people. So it does take some time to put it together.
Yeah, I can speak to that. It's music to our ears what you're saying, because we started out with consolidation, and so we're very much in favor of it as a whole board. The trouble is that we saw deer in the headlight or stage fright. That's too much too fast. So we're elated about continuing talks about consolidation. It's just we got to start somewhere, and it seemed like when we came the first round back in the fall about consolidation, it was just too much for everybody to bite off. So we backed up and said, okay, how about co-oping? And so it's definitely just a stepping stone as far as we're concerned, but we are very much, and I mean, I see all the heads nodding, so we'll call that as yes on the Marion board also.
Tom, would you just want to, I know you said that the consolidation thing can be a longer process. Can you just give everybody maybe a tentative idea that if you want to do it the right way, how long that process might actually take?
The Department of Education said from start to finish, it's about a 2-year process, because there is a lot of work that has to go into this. You have to get with the Register of Deeds office. Every parcel of land in every district has to be figured out. There's a lot of work the school districts have to do and the boards have to agree on. And as you might expect, the biggest discussion in a consolidation is where will the kids go to school? And whose kids are going to be transported? Where's the transportation? And I know we've had some very, very preliminary discussions about what that might look like, but those are the big hurdles to cross. Once those are figured out, then it moves fairly quickly. So Is it possible to do this in 2 years? Yes. If both boards are ready to get right down to it and get after it, it could be done as quickly as 2 years. It wouldn't have to necessarily wait for 3 years.
So a lot of people have talked to me, and they've been in favor. They're in favor of co-oping, but they're also like, we want to wait a year. And so if that were the case, if we were to wait a year, and could we have all that lined up within? I mean, is that possible that could be done within a year? I mean, at least know where everything stands. You know what I'm saying? So like how Joyce said, to drag our feet, but a lot of people have said, I've had people call and whatever, and they're like, we'd like to know where that is all going to be, and that's the reason that they were in favor of waiting a year, if that makes.
Yeah, could you have the plan put together in a year? I think you could. You wouldn't have the Department of Ed approval, and you wouldn't have taken a vote yet in the communities, but I think you could have the outline of the plan put together in a year. My concern would be, if I'm Marion or Freeman Academy, if you say, well, let's wait till next year, then are we right back in the gym here next year, and what do they do in the meantime? I mean, obviously they can do it again, like Larry said, the same way they did this year. They can do that again next year. But I would hope I would like to see you folks co-op tonight. And it's not like you're committing for 100 years. A co-op commitment is, this would be a 3-year commitment because of the weird 1-year realignment, but it's not forever. You're not committing, the boards are not committing themselves to this forever. If that didn't happen tonight and the vote failed by any one of the boards, and everybody agreed that we should do this next year, to help every school district figure out their scheduling, figure out, what they're going to do, I would hope you would vote tonight then to start this co-op next year. So everybody is not sitting in limbo wondering where they're going to be a year from now. That's just my 2 cents. I mean, obviously it's up to the boards.
Something I'd like to add to that as well is that this doesn't just have to be right away. It doesn't just have to be sports. There are other things that Freeman Academy, and Marion can do together right away as well. We have from a Marion standpoint, we have a very good home ec program, or it's called FCCLA now. Sorry about that. We could get our FFA and ag programs going together and sharing any resources, stuff like that. I don't want to just pigeonhole this to sports at all. I just, again, it always goes to the sports, but whether this ends the consolidation or not, I think Marion and Freeman should have an avenue, a line of communication together at all times when something comes up, like joint band or joint pep band for games or something like that. Those are the things we should be looking at as well with this. It's just getting the sports co-op done kind of stabilizes everything, and then we can start broadening the horizon a little bit and looking more. How can we share this while we're working on the consolidation? I don't want to scare this consolidation off either. I'm just saying that there are things that we can do maybe to save each district a little bit of money at a time and get the kids doing other things together. Quiz bowl. I'm just, this just doesn't have to be sports. I think it's a springboard to doing other things as well.
The question was, when 2 schools or 3 schools co-op, how do they typically hire the coaches for those programs? And there really isn't a set protocol for that. It kind of depends on how the schools feel about the current coaching situation that they have. So it's really, really up to the boards again. Do they want to use the existing coaches and bring those in from the schools, the current schools? Who gets named the head? Who's the assistant? Are they co-heads? I mean, there's just a million different ways that it's been done in different communities.
I will add to that and just say in that draft cooperative agreement that we put together when we met as schools, that process is outlined in that particular document as far as the ADs kind of taking charge, as far as, you know, almost kind of starting over from scratch and saying we're going to interview for each position and then move forward with that with the hopes of, you know, getting equal representation from all the schools that are involved. So that was the process that we came up with collectively in there about how we would go about doing that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. I'll just start with volleyball, and I'll just start with volleyball, and just give you the high school numbers. Volleyball this year they had 8, cross country 3, girls basketball 10, and just in case you know I'm talking, these are just Marion numbers. These aren't the Academy and Marion Cooperative. This is just Marion. And then boys basketball 5, wrestling 3, golf 5, and then cheerleading 3, and this year we have 21 in track. So, yes. Well, that's we have a volleyball coach up here, and I think what did you have, a couple 7th and 8th graders in the varsity?
I had, well, let's see, little less than half of my 8th graders started varsity on volleyball this year. And as a coach, I really don't want that. I mean, I want the kids to be able to play their age, because when you put them up on varsity and they play against seniors and sophomores and even that, they're at a higher level. And so those kids get beaten down and then they don't want to play anymore. So when they get up to the higher grades, they don't want to play because they spent their 7th and 8th grade years getting beat by kids that are seniors. So I did have quite a few.
So those are the high school numbers, and we have middle school and 4th and 6th participation as well, but that kind of gives you an idea where the Marion numbers are at.
Our ADM is currently 27. We're the smallest school of the 3. Looking down the road, we're going to be consistently in the mid-20s for our ADM. Mark already talked about this, but like for boys and girls basketball this past year, the numbers between the 2 schools and basically flipped. That Academy had more boys than girls, and then vice versa. Again, the numbers for both of us together are very similar to what you saw up there for the participation numbers. You have zeros at different points, and that's hard to overcome.
As far as waiting a year, I'd like to make comment on the young lady that said she didn't do well from the cuff. I thought you did awful good, and I didn't even see you look at your notes. So thank you for your input. But I am in the same camp exactly as this. Next year or some other time has got me wore out. I think now is the time. And as leaders, sometimes we have to step out and do things that maybe aren't comfortable, and there might be a little kickback. But we never get anywhere if we don't take a chance and if we don't do some progressive thinking ahead of where we're at currently. And I just want to emphasize that I agree totally about waiting is past time, and next year just doesn't sound appetizing to me. I think the time is now, and I would certainly appreciate if all boards would see it that way.
I'm Suzanne Kerner. I've coached for quite a few years. And I think as I've thought about this possible co-op, I know one thing that I've had to do really has been to kind of put my emotions aside. I've had to maybe put my pride aside and maybe even some prejudices. And that's really hard to do. We all have those. And I think they are more prevalent within each one of us than we sometimes even realize. And when I've been able to do that is when I can really feel like I can look at it logically. And I think it is logical for us to co-op. I know it's hard to give up one's identity as a school. When we co-opted with Marion, you know, we had to give up our Bobcats and Marion had to give up their Bears. And it takes a little time, but it in time you get used to that new identity and you can move forward with a new identity, and that's really something also exciting to think about. So I understand maybe it will take more time, but I hope that everyone will keep working on it. And I just also want to thank the boards, all three boards, for really spending a lot of hours and doing a lot of research and having a lot of meetings. I know it's really hard work, so I appreciate that.
Chad Kramer from over in Marion. I've had a bit of a unique experience with my kids with schools and co-ops. I've got 3 kids. 2 of them are grown now. I have 1 freshman daughter still in school. We have been Cobras, Bears, Bearcats, where my boys have seen the most success was with the Rebel program. And thanks to Coach Seiler, a big part of that, I think, is consistency. It was co-op started when I was in high school. It's been the same ever since. It's a well-established program, and consistency counts. It's the same coach, the same program. It's phenomenally run, and my boys have seen the most success in that area. I'm not even counting a few of the co-ops that we've had in my time that my kids weren't even a part of. The brief almost co-op with Canastota, for instance. We played some youth ball with Parker. So we have been co-op to death. In my house, we're tired. Very, very tired. With that, we've had, and not fault of the coaches, but with all the different co-ops, it's revolving coaches. My kids have a new coach every year, 2 years. So now they're coming in, they've got to learn a coach's style, a new offense, new expectations. That puts them back. It is unbelievably detrimental what I've seen with my kids in attempting to just play this co-op roulette. Looking to the future. Like I said, I've got 2 that are grown right now. I've got 1 getting married this summer. His fiance, Freeman girl. They bought a house in Sioux Falls currently. They have talked, they would like to move back here. But the phrase that they have both told me is, why? This is a young couple that wants to move back in our area. Why should they? What are we setting? What are we building? Where are we moving? We've got 3 schools that are shrinking. It's a hard reality of it. I've got another one that just graduated a couple years ago. He is looking at his future. Where is he going to settle? Again, same conversation. What's keeping me here when I could live in a Hartford, in a Harrisburg? What do I have for my kids? What's the future? I think that co-op is a great springboard. To what Matt says, I think it's a great opportunity to start looking at other avenues. You know, where can we take this beyond sports? I've been at these co-op meetings, consolidation meetings, before my kids started sports, before my kids were even in school, and my oldest is 24. I've been in a lot of these gyms, a lot of these meetings. I hope that we can start moving forward. I would love, me personally, my house, I would love to see an eventual consolidation between the schools.
I have a couple of questions. I would like some clarity because it seems like we're having two different conversations. If this co-op is about consolidation, are we consolidating with the academy as well? Are we talking about a 3-school consolidation? And if we're not talking about consolidation, if this is about community, then why are we not talking about soccer? And why are we not talking about football? It seems like we're not quite all in from either direction. So what is the goal of this co-op?
Currently, so it's, Nathan, correct me if I'm wrong here, but basically it's Freeman Academy soccer, but students from Marion and Freeman both participate in that. Is that how we handle that?
That's correct. It's basically already a 3-school co-op for soccer.
Now, as far as the football thing is concerned, and I think you can probably speak a little bit more to your football arrangement right now. I know when we initially started talking about some type of cooperative agreement between the three of us, I know that we spoke with Canastota on our end, and we were pretty happy with where we were at the time. And I believe you have some arrangement in place with Bridgewater Emory, Ethan, for next year. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. I know we kind of talked about this at the last meeting, but my understanding is you have an agreement with them in football until you would get to the point where you would enter into some consolidation, at which point in time then that would go. That was kind of the agreement that you had. But again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you can kind of speak to that.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I get your point. It gets kind of confusing, and it'd be nice if we could get it all wrapped up in one big ball and it could all happen at once. Obviously, they have a successful and a good co-op with Canastota right now, so we weren't, nor did we think we'd be able to barge in on that situation. So we went out solely searching for something to do for our boys to play football, and that's where we ended up, was at Bridgewater Emory Ethan. We're very happy that happened. It's a good program. We hope our boys can get some benefits out of it. Obviously, all 3 schools would be wanting to bring football in, I think, as soon as it makes sense and as soon as the public will accept it. But it's just about impossible to, as I've worked for 13 years trying to get these things together, this is the closest we've been in a long time. And with the effort it takes, that's why I understand you aren't going to get everything you want and everything isn't going to happen at one time. But this would be a giant step forward in the right direction so that eventually we could have just one co-op and we wouldn't be split different directions. But unfortunately, it just can't happen in one quick swoop. So that's why this is a very good step forward, and obviously hoping to bring everything else along with it in the end.
I have one more question. Is the Marion School District talking to other schools about consolidation as well? What if we go this direction and the voters decide to go have you consolidate with Canastota or Parker?
Currently, we have no other talking. We have talked in the past with Parker, but currently we do not have any open discussions with them at this time.
I just want to make one thing clear, that if the Marion and the Freeman boards end up consolidating, all the old existing co-op agreements go away. And so Freeman and Marion, whatever you call the district, would be one district, and you wouldn't be co-opt with anybody. You'd be just with yourselves. Now that wouldn't forbid you from asking another school, Freeman Academy, to participate in a co-op with you. But once you consolidate, the Bridgewater Emory Ethan in football thing goes away, the Canastota thing in football goes away if these two schools come together. Again, it would not prohibit the new school board. That's another thing in consolidation. All the school board members are off if there's a consolidation, and you have to rerun for the board, and there's a new consolidated school board. And so, yes, those would all go away. You can re-enter them as a new board, but you would be re-entering them as Freeman Marion, not individually. I can't speak to Freeman Academy, but I can speculate that a private school is not part of a consolidation talk with public schools. Is that fair to say?
I don't believe it's possible for a private
Yeah, I
school.
don't believe it wouldn't be legal.
Anybody else want to speak?
First off, I want to say I'm not against a co-op. Sports co-op with Marion, Freeman Academy, would be great, awesome. But this meeting feels like we're still kicking the tires meeting to me. What GPA will the student athletes need to maintain to play sports? What's our mascot? There's just way too many things that need to be ironed out before, if I like this meeting, I think we should spend the next year. Let's grow. Let's use this meeting to grow. But let's do it the right way. As a parent of 3 kids in the Freeman Public School system, I feel like this co-op is being shoved down my throat in the last 2 months. I just think there's been, and I know a lot of Freeman Public parents feel this way. There's been a lack of transparency from our administration to the parents, information-wise. Why did it take 1 hour before this meeting took part to dial out to the Freeman parents to let them know that this meeting, I was under the understanding that this meeting was to take place April 13th. My wife got a text at 10 o'clock last night. 10 o'clock. That this meeting was going to be tonight. So again, I'm not against, I think it'll bring the communities together. I'm all for it. And I'm all for eventual consolidation, which business-wise would make sense. But I just feel like this is being rushed. There's just too many unanswered questions.
Well, I can address the unanswered questions, and this comes from Tom, and he can elaborate. But there's designed reasons why some of these decisions haven't been made, and one on the mascot and colors is that's the first thing then this room would be complaining about and wondering about and fighting about. And so we want to get the important thing done, which is, does it make sense for the kids to be in this co-op, and does the co-op make sense? Then we worry about the details of hiring coaches, the mascots, and all those things. And when he first told me that, I thought, man, that seems a little backwards. But the more I've looked at it and how complicated and how emotional this is for everybody, I think it's a wise idea, and it's through Tom that I understand that's the way it needs to be done. So I don't think it's lack of preparation or we're out on a helter-skelter mode. And, of course, that really hits a chord with me because we've been talking to you guys for years. This isn't something that just popped up. It unfortunately dies and then comes up and dies and comes up. But it's not like it's something that just sprang out in the last 3 months. It's been for years that we've talked about this. So I guess, Tom, maybe if you want to elaborate, but I know there's a reason we're doing it in the order we are, and it's sure not haphazard.
The first sports co-op I was involved with was 1985. So I've seen these happen a few times over my career. And Larry's exactly right. people used to try to hammer out the school colors and the mascot and all that before they ever had a vote on whether it was a right decision for the kids to form a co-op. And that's really what the big question here tonight is. Will this benefit the Freeman kids? Will it benefit the Marion kids? Will it benefit the Freeman Academy kids? Is it the right thing to do for your kids? Figuring out what the mascot is going to be is such a menial thing. It really is in the big picture of things. It's what's best for your kids as far as an activity. And Larry's right. The reason schools no longer bring up the mascot before they vote on whether to consolidate is it gets so emotional. My recommendation always to the school is put a group of 5 kids together from each school and let them figure out what the mascot is. They'll do it a lot faster than the adults, and they'll get along and they'll be fine with it. The question was, is there enough time to, if the boards vote on this tonight, to get this ready for the fall? And I would refer you to the South Dakota High School Activities Association. They're the ones that set the deadline for when school districts need to make this decision. And so, yes, if the boards vote tonight in favor of doing this, there is enough time to do that. No question about it. That's why the deadline is set the way it is. If you wait another couple of months, the Activities Association is likely going to say, you're too late, we're putting together our schedules, and you can't do it anymore this year. So you really do need to make a decision tonight if you're going to move forward.
I'll add a couple more practical details that go along with that. Yes, for the Activities Association, the decision needs to be made tonight. They would not, as he said, approve it later on. But if the vote is positive tonight to move forward, then we do need to work out those other details fairly quickly. Committees need to be formed, or I love the idea of letting the kids decide, because ordering uniforms and those types of things take several months before they're delivered. So we'd want to definitely have all of that in place for the fall.
I don't know. I will say, as I sit here right now, Nikki, I still don't know how I want to vote tonight. No, I know. Just as far as like it's a pre-made up decision, I don't speak for everybody. I will tell you, I still sit here, and as we come to the vote, I still might not know exactly how I feel. So that way, and as far as kids that we're going to lose, right, that would be a guess. I don't know.
And you're right. How many kids are we going to lose because of a sports co-op? With open enrollment, it makes it so easy for anyone to move from district to district to play a sport or go to school in a different district. Let's take consolidation for an example. We don't know, or any other school doesn't know when they come together how many other kids are going to lose because of a consolidation. It's too terribly easy for people to move their kids from place to place. Do we know that? No. When other schools have consolidated, they've lost kids or they've gained kids.
it's all up in the air. We don't know those answers until it actually happens, and then somebody. I mean, we can have people move from Freeman, even if we stay as Freeman, and say, you know, they didn't want to commit to this, so we're going to move our kids to Menno, or we're going to move our kids to Marion so they can play with Freeman Academy Marion Bears or Bearcats. You know, so it's a question that is almost unanswerable because it's just too easy to move your children to a different community to participate. I mean, my kids, when we were still living in Tripp, my kids came to Freeman School. They were here for about a year and a half before we actually moved. Could they have stayed in Tripp? Yeah, but we thought it was better for them when they were 6th and 2nd grade to be accepted into their classes at an early age rather than move them later on. So, yeah, it's a question that nobody is going to be able to actually answer 100% because parents get emotional and they can pretty much do whatever they want. And we all know that there's kids from other communities going to different schools because, well, they weren't good enough to play in this school, but yet they can go to a different school and play. So we're going to move the kid and let them do that. So how many are we going to lose? Don't know. How many are we going to gain? We don't know. I mean, we could have actually more kids come and participate from a different community. We don't know that either. So, yeah, it's something you're not going to be able to just pound that answer into the ground and say, yes, absolutely, everybody's going to participate 100% who's going to all 3 schools.
I guess I'd refer back, was it Tom Kramer? Is that the name? Chad Kramer. Like he was saying earlier, we're missing out on people moving to this community because our athletic programs aren't large enough and aren't offering enough opportunity for families to want to move their kids to our community. Are we going to lose students to open enrollment initially? Yeah, we probably are. But are we going to grow steadily after that with people moving to our community? I think that's also a yes.
I'd like to speak too to the open enrollment thing, and all I can talk about is the past. I can't predict the future, but the last time Marion had a co-op that was real close and going to pass was with Canastota about 6 years ago, and it fell through at the last minute. And we had a massive, I call it massive, I think it was between 10 and 12 open enrollments that left because it failed. So my past experience from these things falling apart will be more negative for open enrollment than that we're going to lose kids because of it. So all I can speak to is the past, and Marion's past has been you don't get a sports co-op that kids feel like they have a fair chance to play at their level. You got a lot better chance of losing kids than because you gave them an opportunity to play at their age level.
Hi, I'm Shane Vetch, and I'm on the Academy board here, but also been a part of the community and support the Freeman School and the Academy. One of the things that I'd at least just like to point out that in a consolidation, and I'm for it, and I've been for consolidation for many years, but from my understanding, in a consolidation is you'll graciously have a document, but we're going to have people who handle the document. So the goal in my eyes is to build relationships and then to work off of those relationships, as opposed to we can only do what's on page 2 or what's on page 4. So this is going to be a relationship building, agreement in my eyes. And the other part of it is I would just kind of throw out that, to be quite honest, I have faith that this will work. That I have faith in the parents, I have faith in the schools and the districts, and I think it's great for the communities. I think it'll be great for Freeman, and I think it'll be great for Marion. And one of the things that I said to the Marion board and the Freeman board is, my goal is to make Marion look good and Freeman Public to look good. This isn't about one versus the other and all that. The better we can make everybody look good, I think it's a win for all of us.
Anybody else? All right.
Kyle, I will say one thing that I wanted to address, and this has been brought up a couple times tonight, the issue of transparency. I will tell you that I had a conversation with a couple board members about this, and it was kind of comical to me today that, you know, some people that maybe don't want this to happen are trying to use, I guess, myself and me leaving to go a different career path here as an excuse to put this off, to not do it. And we've already heard, you know, somebody say that, you know, the current administration in place is not ready for a transition to A, or, you know, not getting a call until an hour before the meeting tonight. You know, I think the board has had a lot more open conversations about this since we started talking about this in October than they probably would have wanted to have. They were not easy conversations to have. And we've tried our best to get people as much information as we can. So, you know, if you want to blame me for, you know, not doing this or use it as an excuse, I think that's a little short-sighted. Whether I'm staying or whether I'm going, my opinion isn't going to change in terms of thinking that this is in the best interest of our kids at Freeman Public and in the best interest of the kids in the other schools involved. So, you know, Slade and I had a conversation today and basically just said, you know, I don't get a vote on this. I try to provide the board with as much information as I can, and I certainly give my opinion when I think it's needed. But like I said, at the end of the day, I would be 100% on board with this, whether I'm staying or going.
All right, then I think that will end the public input section of the agenda, and so we will move on to business items. And so we are going to require a motion to approve any resolution for a sports cooperative between the schools of Freeman, Marion, Freeman Academy, and the sports of basketball, cross country, golf, track, and volleyball, starting effective the 21-22 school year.
Kyle, real quick, are there any questions that any of the board members from Marion or Freeman Academy or even Freeman Public would like to ask before we get into voting? I know everybody kind of spoke freely a little bit here already, but there might be some unanswered questions as far as that stuff goes.
No questions from Freeman Academy.
I guess we're probably going to be the first to vote, but before we do, I would just like to make one more last plea that we understand that it's very tough, like I've said earlier, being a leader and having to make tough decisions, and we know there's going to be people that won't be happy, but I think it's quite obvious from the discussions I've had, and I know I've talked to the board members from Freeman and stuff, and one of the questions we proposed was, is this in the best interest of the kids? And the two members that I was talking to said yes, and that's where I would like it to stay. I mean, you know, all this other stuff, you know, can be worked out, can be overtaken with discussion and cure things, but we have to at least get started. And I guess that's what I'm hoping we can do is get off on a start here and make sure that we give our kids this opportunity, because I think everybody knows, and I've even heard from the people, you know, I honestly was trying to keep track of, and even those of you that had questions were a little concerned, you said you were in favor of it. And so I don't hardly catch any overly negative, we don't want to do it. It's maybe let's wait, or it seems rushed, and I get all that, and that's a normal feeling when we're doing something new and we're out of our comfort level. But I really feel it would be a grave mistake if we let those emotions overtake what's the best for all the kids of the three schools. So.
Kyle, could you please reread the motion just to make sure all the boards and for their minutes have that recorded accurately?
Yeah. Okay. So the motions will require a motion to approve the resolution for a sports cooperative between the schools of Freeman, Marion, Freeman Academy in the sports of basketball, cross country, golf, track, and volleyball, effective the 21-22 school year.
For the Marion School Board, I make that motion.
We have a motion from Jen to accept this motion that's been read. Is there a second?
I'll make the second.
Matt has made the second. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Do we have someone willing to make that motion from our side?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Shane has moved and Leanne has seconded the motion that has been read. Are there any questions or discussions over this motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries for Freeman Academy.
Does somebody want to make the motion? We have a motion by Slade. Do we have a second? Second by Corey. Any other discussion or?
So just a little discussion thing that I thought of. It seems a little bit hard that we've just had a first public meeting about a week and a half ago, and I think we were probably going to meet as a board and talk about it. So it feels a little bit backwards that our next meeting that we had after our public meeting is with 3 schools, rather than talking as a board and then our community is with all 3 communities. So it feels a little bit like, no one wants to say one thing or another because of all the people here. But I can understand where some people are coming with that. We just had our first public meeting a week and a half ago, and there's a lot of details. And I think Freeman is in this place where I've been getting a lot of phone calls, text, emails, and so forth. And I think there's some people over here and some people over here and some that want something else. And the thing that I think from some of the people that were bold enough to share, I think Freeman would be in a worse place right now to move ahead, because I think there's not a clear consensus, not one clear road that everybody's on right now. And so I think that idea of waiting and ironing some of those things out, bringing people along, isn't a bad idea. So I feel bad saying all this in front of everybody, but I think that was the clear message we had at our last meeting. And because I don't think those people wanted to say that again, but that seemed to be the clear message that came out of their last meeting, that most people were encouraged or want to go forward. So tonight is actually really encouraging, but I felt like there was too many questions and too many options out there that we didn't. All this is just being rolled out for the first time last week, and now the second time is this. And so that's what I just wanted as a board for us to realize and just think about.
Any other discussion? All right, I think we're probably going to do a roll call vote. Slade, we're going to start with you. Yes. Mark? Cody? No. Corey? All right, I think in the interest of the public that I've input I've gotten, I'm going to vote no, but I really would like to keep working forward to push it through. So the motion doesn't carry 3-2. Then I guess the only thing left is we need a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion for Marion.
Second that.
Before we adjourn, I wonder if we can address continuing this discussion, setting up some kind of task force or committee and giving them a mandate so that we can address some of the questions that the community has brought forward.
Tom has a thought here I think he'd like to share too.
I would just throw this out there before you guys adjourn. If the only issue is it's too fast, but everybody else wants to do it, there's nothing that would prohibit the boards tonight from making a motion to start this co-op in the 22-23 school year. And then the work can begin to get all those other things done.
Would there be interest in wanting to do that, to make a motion like that?
I feel like we need to have more discussions about the options that are available. I mean, we came ready to make this vote tonight. That's my 2 cents from the Marion side. But I am one board member, not all of us.
I guess I'm trying to process what was the down there. Were you saying something about maybe the junior high side of things, of at least getting something started, or what? I missed what you said.
Yeah, wondering if we can agree on some format for continuing this discussion for the 22-23 school year.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp that I've seen this fall on its head after a failed vote like this. So anything we can do, and including, I don't know if there's backing to want to, do any more voting tonight. But I do think there should be some definite outlay or some kind of a format that would suggest that we're going to move ahead, because it's mind-boggling to me that it seems like it's just too fast. But I can about picture this will fall on its head for 6-8 months, and then we'll be back in the same thing and hearing the same comments. So something more concrete, I feel, would be good to move forward with too.
Nathan up here, would each board be willing to, at their next official meeting, have as an agenda item setting up a task force and who you would like to see being on that task force? So then following that meeting, that could be put in place to keep this moving for 2022-23.
Yeah.
Yes, we can certainly put it on our agenda to discuss it.
Yeah, I would like to put it on our agenda and to continue the talks.
Okay, we'll have it on ours as well.
All right. So then we need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I think we started over here. Jen made the motion. Did we have a second?
Oh, that works for everybody. Sorry.
Oh, it works. Okay. This is everybody's
I'm sorry. I
adjourned?
didn't know if we had to do it separately. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay.
I think we're all in separate meetings, so
Okay.
yeah, we all have to adjourn just like we started.
Sorry.
So we've got a motion by Jen, seconded by Matt. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Is there a motion to adjourn? I'll move. Ann moves, Leanne seconds. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Corey, second by Slade. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.